Hello, this is Demon Phoenix with a Witcher 3 video, and this time I'm just starting a new series about how I would go through the game and what skills and things that I look out for that are preferable. So this is right at the start of the game after you've first fought the first set of ghouls and ridden with Vesemir into White Orchard, the village itself. The first thing I like to do is use Igni, and I know it's a bit macabre, but we kill some of the animals that are in White Orchard. Now this is before you've had any other fights other than the ghoul when you first get into the village. If you're going to kill the cows, hopefully you get some cow hides, but only kill 5 at a maximum, do not kill any more. So the other things to look out for here in White Orchard is that you can use Igni to kill these geese. Now be careful if the guards are around because that can annoy them, but most of the time you'll be okay, and you can get raw meat from the geese, which you can use to heal yourself. You can also get chicken legs from killing the chickens and hens that are in White Orchard, including the ones that are on this main path here. And you can also get eggs. Now chicken legs are good because they heal at 50 per second, which is standard rate, but they also heal for 10 seconds instead of 5, just like water does. So they're marginally better than using raw meat. So you can get a fair few chicken legs there. Again, before we do anything else, you can come to this side of town where there is the fast travel market and the bridge, and you can loot the chests and items that are on this guard outpost, and the guards won't start any ruckus with you, so that's not a problem. It's largely uneventful, but you do normally get wire, as you can see here, and wire is one of the things that you need to upgrade your starting armour. There are 3 main upgrades that I always get in White Orchard, and they are to upgrade the starting armour jacket and to upgrade the 2 swords. So instead of upgrading them, you get the Viper swords, which are Witcher gear and are much more powerful than any of the other swords that you would find or use. So after you've looted that and hopefully got wire there, you need 2 wire, 2 leather scraps, your Kaer starting armour and 1 cured leather. Now you will normally pick these up, and those are the items that you need to be able to upgrade your armour and increase its resistances a little bit, which is very useful. And once you've done the Twisted Fire Starter, you just speak to the dwarf in the village and you complete that quest, and he will be an armourer, and then loot everything that's in this house on the map as well. So the house that I'm stood by there, loot everything there. It has some good things like dimeritium ingots, which are quite rare and expensive. Then if you go to the section of the map I've showed you just there, this is another house, and there's a lady outside it which will start one of the funnier short little quests where you have to find her frying pan. This is an easy quest, you don't have to fight anybody, it takes about 40 seconds to complete the whole thing. And you get a fair few items, including some apple juice, which is 5 of those, and they heal 80 per second, so they're even better for early game healing. So now that we've got enough food and we've not had to do anything special to do that, we just make sure that we're looting everything along the way, and we can set out to try and get an ability point. Now the place of power that I'm just showing here, every time you draw from a place of power the first time, you get an ability point. So we come to this one which I've just shown you on the map, and it's a Quen one and grants you an ability point, and this is completely unguarded, so you'll be able to get to this and get an ability point right here. You can use whatever abilities you want, but your starting gear is all medium armour, and so the one that I like to go for is the Griffin School Techniques. Another really good alternative is Gourmet, which if you have the expansions you will have access to straight away, and that means that food lasts 20 minutes instead of the normal 10 seconds or whatever it is that it normally lasts, which is fantastic. So I would get either Gourmet or Griffin School Techniques. Personally, I like to get Griffin School Techniques first. Now you start off with only 1 item slot, you get another item slot at level 2 and a mutagen slot as well, but you won't have many mutagens to start off with. So it's important for which item you get first. Now Griffin School Techniques, with your 4 pieces of medium gear that you start with, will add 20 stamina regeneration per second and 20% sign intensity, which is a lot early in the game. And I really like this because in Deathmarch, which this is aimed for, you take a lot of damage and the armor doesn't really prevent a lot until you get the higher level armor and higher setups. So if you go with Griffin School Techniques, you can use Igni more often, but also keep Quen up at all times to make sure that you're taking less damage, and it just makes the fights a little more bearable. And because of the increase in sign intensity by 20%, it also gives you a better chance of burning things, and Igni's burn rate is really important early in the game. It's extremely useful. You can also go with muscle memory or strength training if you want to increase your fast or your strong attack damage respectively, but I will normally leave these till a little bit later, or until you've got your level 2 and it opens that second ability point. What we're going to do later on is get all the places of power before we leave. So that's something you can bear in mind there. Now if you just noticed on the map, you can see that I've got a second place of power by clearing out the question marks at the bottom of the map on the way to this section on the coast. Now this has a hidden treasure, but it has drowners. Now drowners can be a little bit difficult to fight early on because they're level 4 and you're only level 1. you'll normally only end up level 4 by the end of White Orchard, so you do have to be respectful of the fact that they will kick your ass if you're not careful. So make sure you're dodging, but you can see how useful the Griffin School techniques is already, as it's letting my stamina regenerate faster, so I have more uses of Igni, and Igni, when it applies the burn because of the sign intensity, does good damage. Now you get a Drowner Brain from beating Drowners usually, and you only need one to be able to make Swallow. So this is an important thing here. You can see the tutorial, replenishing items. One of the things that I actually missed and was very important in my first playthrough of Witcher 3, I didn't realise, is that whenever you make anything like bombs or potions, they are yours to keep for the rest of time. You don't need to get any of the ingredients again to be able to make them, you just need the ingredients the first time. Anytime you meditate after that, you use hard alcohol, which is normally alcohest or Dwarven Spirit, and it will restock everything that you've made already. So here you can see I've already made Swallow, and you already get Tawny Owl at the start of the game, which is a potion that will increase your stamina regeneration. So you have 3 uses of those per hard alcohol. So as long as you're looting everything, you can just spend a bit of time going around the houses and things, and you will end up with a couple of hard alcohol, and if you use it conservatively, you can use 6 uses of those 2 potions, so 3 for each. For every use of alcohol. So you should have plenty of alcohol to be able to get you through the game, especially because we've stocked up on food. So next we go to this graveyard, which is towards the northern part of the map. If you just skip back a little bit, you'll be able to see it on the map as I showed it there. So what we do here is, if you've already done the Devil in the Well contract, this is good for fighting wraiths. You might want to do Devil in the Well first, and that will also, there's a few pickups there including a bear fat, and that will let you craft Spectre Oil. Now Spectre Oil makes you make sure you do 10% more damage to this wraith, but basically it's a one-on-one fight, so it's the only thing that's hit you. It's not like we can get overwhelmed by fighting wolves early on. You just have to make sure that, again, you are dodging with B button, or circle on PS4 I believe it would be, and then keeping Erden down so that the wraith takes a material form and you can actually hit it. Just dodge back from its attacks. It either goes for 3 in a spinning combo, or it goes for a single strike, so you can either just dodge once or twice and then keep hitting it. After you've done half of its health, you can get the Igni Place of Power for another ability point there, and then you go into the basement of this church area, and there you can fight it. So you see here it's got a red skull. You can of course leave this until later when you are a closer level towards the end of White Orchard and fight it then. But it is beatable as long as you just maintain your health and just be careful dodging around if you need a bit of time for swallow or food to take effect. So once you've done this, the reason that we're trying to beat this enemy early on is because it allows you to get the Viper Silver Sword diagram. Now this is the diagram that you need to craft the Viper Silver Sword, and it's much more powerful than your starting Silver Sword. So you pick up the diagram there and then you'll be able to craft it later. If you're looting everything, there's a few random houses and they will sometimes have a single silver ingot or some silver or something like that, and you can craft the silver ingots out of the silver you have, or use any silver ingots that you find. So you shouldn't have to buy silver. If you don't have it at the time that you first go to craft the silver sword, then you can always wait until later and see if you've got silver ingots by the time it comes to leaving White Orchard or the time it comes to fighting the Griffin. So here I've built the sword. And this blacksmith is just in the Nilfgaard camp, which is how you find him when you progress the main mission anyway. So when you equip the silver sword, it will increase your damage by quite a lot, and that makes fighting the monsters like the drowners and any other monsters that you have to fight, like ghouls, for some of the question marks that you want to clear out, the undiscovered locations. And it makes those easier to fight because it increases your damage and has a good chance to actually poison. After you've spoken to the Nilfgaardian commander, just make sure that you don't pick up any buckthorn, the plants underwater, before you progress the main mission, because one of these side missions won't happen if you've found buckthorn by yourself, because you have to go and speak to this person, who is Tomira, and she is an alchemist and she will tell you where to find the buckthorn. So if you found the buckthorn already, it skips this part of the quest, and you also miss out on the option to speak to her about the injured person, and the injured person in her hut you can give Swallow to, and that will get you extra experience points as well, which is important early on. Now what I just did there was I sold the honeycombs, which I picked up. If you see any honeycombs on the trees, they will be showed up with your Witcher senses, and you just hit them with Igni or knock them down with Ard and then hit them with Igni, and you can pick those up and you can sell them to Tomira. She gives the best price for them out of anybody in White Orchard. And there is also alchemist powder, which is something that you use to craft higher level items, but you get so much of it later in the game that early on you can sell her the alchemist powder. I've just been conservative and kept a few there, but if you're struggling
for money to make the swords or buy the silver, you can sell things like that. If you've got enough alcohest, you can also sell Temerian Rye or Nilfgaardian Lemon, which are the other types of hard alcohol. Because if you've got enough alcohest to restock your potions, you don't need to keep the Temerian Rye and Nilfgaardian Lemon, so you can sell those to her for a little bit of extra income and use that to make sure you've crafted the swords. So here you can see that I'm using a sword that I found for my steel sword, because the last thing we've got to do is try and kill these bandits, which are, if you follow the Viper School Gear quest after you've got the diagram for the Viper Silver Sword, this is where you get the diagram for the steel sword. So you want both of these because they can last you right up until you get the Griffin School swords in Velen at level 11. So they can last you a long time. They're very useful because they both have good poisoning percentage. So without any runes or anything like that in them, they can poison your enemies, and poison is really good over time on deathmatch because you'll do a lot of dodging and you can kill these guys fairly easily. They're about level 2 or 3. And this is the leader. He'll normally be the last one left, but when he's the last one left, you can just use Axii and then hit him without it being a problem at all. Now, the steel Viper sword doesn't need any silver, so you can get the steel ingots that you need for it just by dismantling random junk. A lot of the random junk makes ingots and things like that. So you shouldn't have to buy anything for that and just do dismantling, and a lot of those don't cost very much to dismantle at all to be able to get that. You pick up the diagram and you can make the sword, and then you've got the best steel sword you can have at this point as well. What I did was I used one of the slightly better steel swords that I picked up, slightly better than the default starting steel sword up until this point, and then I just dismantled it to get the rune that I'd put in the sword back when it was time for me to craft the Viper Steel Sword. So you should by this point have the Viper Steel Sword and the Viper Silver Sword and have upgraded your armor. So you've got slightly 3 upgrades there, and this is where you can start doing the main missions and clear out the rest of the question marks. So make sure you visit everything. The salmon bomb is quite easy to craft, and that will let you destroy the monster nests. There's a couple of ghoul monster nests, and then these are the places of power. So that was the first one that we start with, and there is the one that's protected by level 6 bear, but again that's a one-on-one fight, that's not too difficult. There's a place of power there next to a monster nest. So there are 6 in total, and you want to make sure you've got those, and then you can have the Griffin School techniques. Like I say, I would recommend you can get gourmet and put it in the second slot there if you find that you're struggling for health or you're running out of food and the combat's proving a bit more difficult. Or you can pick something like muscle memory, like I say, put 5 points in that to increase your adrenaline and also your fast attack damage, or you can do it with strong attack damage. One of the other things that you can also look at is using alchemy skills instead, and that is something that I would strongly recommend if you're thinking about going to Skellige early, because you can use 8 points in the first row of the alchemy skills, which unlocks the second row, and you can use the places of power from Velen to make sure that you have protective coating unlocked. And protective coating is really useful, especially if you're trying to do that mission where you get to Skellige. So here, having finished White Orchard, we've got 20 alcohest, which is plenty for meditating, and even if I'd used more in White Orchard, obviously I'd still have a good number of those. And I've also got both of the Viper swords. I've upgraded the starting armor, and I've got a little bit of money there for we going on with, but we can get more money when we get to Velen, and always come back and buy the Temerian armor afterwards. So I hope you found that useful. We'll be continuing the series, and please like, comment and sub, and let me know your thoughts. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you all later on the path.